Hi everybody. In C, the main way to display information on the screen is with the Printf function. Now this function has a lot of options. You can check them out later on, but this video will cover the ones that you're going to need for this class. In case you're one of the 5 people on Earth who has never played Mad Libs, here's how it works. Somebody asks you for words that represent different things. For instance, a number or a name, an adjective, things like that. So in this example, we'll enter 150 and mom and smart. Then the person will use our words to fill in a story with placeholders for our words. It usually makes a story funny, like this. And everybody gets a big kick out of it. Well, almost everybody. Here's the thing. The Printf function works nearly exactly like Mad Libs. It has placeholders that are going to get filled in with values from a list. Now it has 2 main parts. A format string that can contain placeholders, and then a list of things to fill in those placeholders. Here's an example with the format string, but this one doesn't have any placeholders, and so therefore there's no list. It's just going to print out the string itself. This example shows the format string with a placeholder that's going to get filled in by an integer in the list. The %i is the placeholder. The list contains a 19, and when the function displays output on the screen, the placeholder is going to get replaced by the 19. We can also use %d as a placeholder for an integer. When the function displays output, the placeholder is replaced by the 396 in the list. The first 2 examples demonstrated using constants in the list, but the really neat thing is that list can contain variables also. So this example shows 2 placeholders that are going to be replaced by 2 integers. In this case, the first placeholder will be replaced by the value of x from the list, and the second placeholder will be replaced by the value of y in the list. The order of the variables in the list is the order that they will replace the placeholders. So far, we know that we can use %i or %d as placeholders for integers in the Printf function. We also know that the list can contain either constants, like the 19, or variables, like the x and the y. The idea of placeholders works for characters too. So in this example, I've defined a character variable named ch, which contains the character M. Notice that there are 2 placeholders for a char, and my one char variable appears twice in the list. It's important to notice that a placeholder for a char is %c. The first instance of the ch variable replaces the first placeholder, and the second instance replaces the second placeholder. That means the display would look like this. And there's a lot of truth stated in the output. We'll really get into detail about what constitutes a C language string, but that's going to come a little bit later. For now, just know that this is how we define a string in C. Here the placeholder for a string is %s. It works like the other placeholders. That is, it will be replaced by the value stored in the string variable called name. When we look at the output, we know what this guy's name is. Which brings us to the last placeholder we're going to look at for now, the one to display a float. In this example, I've defined 2 floats, and I have 2 placeholders. Take a look. The placeholder for a float is %f. But the output might surprise you. The variables are displayed with 6 decimal places. That's the default setting for decimal places unless you change it. And we're going to do that, but first, a recap. No, not that kind of recap. Okay, besides the first 2 things, we know that the placeholder for a char is %c, and that the placeholder for a string is %s, and that the placeholder for a float is %f. An easy way to remember the placeholder letters is to realize that each one of them is the first character in the type of data that they're going to get replaced with. Now we're ready for a look at additional control over the output. To gain more control over the way output is displayed, we're going to be using field width and precision specifiers. Let me show you what I mean. Let's make a slight change to the first example we looked at. Here, there's an 8 between the percent and the I. That 8 is called a field width specifier that says, take up a minimum of 8 spaces to print the 19. That's going to make the display look like this. The 19 is printed in a field that takes up 8 spaces. And something else, the 19 is right justified in that field. Using field widths, you can make your programs line things up in columns. But I can use field widths with any data type. In this example, I've got ints, a char, and a string. I'll underline each placeholder to make it easier to see. Make sure that you see that the list has to match the order of the placeholders. When we look at the output, the field widths are obvious for the first 3 variables, but look at the string. The Printf function had a field width of 3, and there are 3 characters in the string. That means no additional padding was required to make up the 3 spaces. Contrast that situation with the others. When we want to display floats, we can specify not only a field width, but also how many decimal places to show. In this example, these numbers stand for field width, and these stand for the number of decimal places. Compare the output with the printf statement. The N1 variable is displayed with a field width of 9 and 3 decimal places. Notice that the decimal point counts as part of the field width. And the N2 variable is displayed with a field width of 10 and 2 decimal places. The number of decimal places is referred to as precision when you're talking about this topic. But what if I don't need a special field width when I want to display a float? Look at this example. I could either put a 0 for the field width or just not put a field width at all. But the decimal point still is part of the placeholder. Now you'd use this technique when you want to specify the number of decimal places, but you don't really care to specify a field width. The last thing you need to know to control output at this point is how to make the display go to the next line on the screen. So what's new in this example? That \n is called the new line character, and it does just what its name implies. It makes the cursor go to the start of the next line on the screen. Here's the resulting output. So that's it. The basics of using the Printf function. The only way you're going to learn this material is to follow the directions on this screen. Make up some programs to practice using the Printf function, and if you get stuck, I'm just an email away. Thank you all for watching.